to Conversations with Agents of Change, the podcast where we meet people who are challenging the ways things have always been done and creating change through courage, creativity, connection, and impact. Today, I'm joined by Tina O'Hagan, a sales trainer, business mentor, food service consultant, and entrepreneur with decades of experience across Ireland, the UK, Australia, and beyond. Tina's work is rooted in a powerful idea that selling doesn't have to feel pushy, uncomfortable, or transactional. In her words, selling is having a conversation with a purpose. And I love that because it takes something many people fear, sales, visibility, asking for the business, and brings it back to something deeply human, listening, trust, service, and connection. Tina has worked with individuals, startups, business owners, and sales teams, helping them build confidence, communicate their value, and grow in a way that feels natural and authentic. She has also worked across food service, hospitality, and food waste solutions, helping businesses think differently about growth, sustainability, and better practice. So today, we talk about confidence, entrepreneurship, women in business, sustainability, and what it really means to sell with integrity. Tina, welcome to Conversations with Agents of Change.
Thank you very much, Giselle. It's really lovely to be here, and thank you for inviting me on the show.
Thank you. Tina, I'm so pleased to have you here. Before we get into your work, I'd love to start with you as a person. When you look back at your journey, who's Tina? And what has shaped the way that you show up in business and life?
What shaped me basically is I wanted to get up and I see life as an adventure. And I want to have as many top-end experiences that I want to have. And I'm still having that. I love adventure. I love freedom. I love experiences. And in regards to work, when I wind back to where I was at the very beginning of where I started in life, I started off in the hospitality industry in catering management. And I knew that I was always meant to be at the front of the house, not the back of the house. So I am qualified cook chef sort of thing, but I never wanted to work as one. And I was always better front of house with people. Being around people, talking to people, having conversations, that's what actually lights me up, talking to people. So going back to your original question, what actually moves me, drives me is that I see life as a journey, and in that journey it's up to you to take and make the best of it, irrespective of what it is you do. We're here for a short time in life. If I can be kind to people, everything that I can do and leave some sort of an impact, that's me really. And building relationships, having conversations, that has been probably my biggest key thing. I love people, and I genuinely love people. And I've made a career out of it, really, when I think of it on another level. Because when I went into selling, first of all, I was so scared. I was so petrified. And I had all these misconceptions about selling. And those came from people that I had seen in my youth that were selling. It was mainly men, actually. Yeah. And believe it or not, the industry that I went into was totally men. I was only saleswoman in it. So I actually saw a lot of things that challenged myself. I like to challenge myself as well. But who am I in respect? I'm a human being having a sort of like spiritual human experience here on earth and enjoying the journey.
That's lovely. And you know what? I think that I can relate to so much of that because my background is IT. And I know how somehow it feels to be in a world when there's more men than women. And it sometimes it can be a struggle to find mentors or someone that you can push yourself and say like, okay, I'm not alone here. So I can relate to that. But one of the things that really stand out when I think about your work is the way you reframe sales. A lot of people, especially small business owner, and I was one, I was petrified, as you said. Even when I was starting out, I felt very uncomfortable selling. I felt that I didn't deserve the money. So it was very tricky. And I associated that with pressure and with rejection, or to having to be someone I wasn't. And I think most people, or some people anyway, that are in line of small businesses or that are starting out, they will feel that way. But your message is very different. You say selling is having a conversation with a purpose. So what does that mean to you? I know you've said you like conversations and you really love people, but what does it mean that you can sell through a conversation and that's part of the purpose of it?
Yeah, it's every conversation you have normally might not come with a sale. You might not get a sale. It. The whole basis of everything is people buy people. That's the first thing. If somebody doesn't buy you within the first minute of meeting you, and I mean by that I mean buying you the way you talk to them, the vocabulary you use, the energy you emit, all that there, you will have a bit of a difficulty even connecting with them. So what I say is sales is having a conversation with purpose. A lot of people have this misconception, and it is a built-in mindset they've learned from somewhere, that you have to be serious talkative to be selling. You have to be really super confident. You have to know your product inside and out. You have to be as brash as you can possibly be, and you've got to be cheeky, and you've got to be all these other things. You don't have to be anything but yourself. That's the key. And that's a problem that a lot of people do. And maybe sometimes I'm not just picking on women or men at this stage. Both men will be very easy motivated to ask for the money and ask for an order. It's very easy. They go for the jugular. They have no issue whatsoever. A woman will find it very difficult to do that, to ask for money and ask for a sale, because that's the emotional part. It's two different things that work there. But when you have all these layers, and that's the best way to describe it, you have all these layers of conditioning. You perceive that you have to become an actor, but you either have to be a very good actor with no holes barred, or you'll see all the cracks in it, or the best thing is forget about that. Just be yourself. Be who you are. And that means stop using words and vocabulary that's not even connected to, that you would very rarely use, or using these words like super, super, or whatever that doesn't align with you.
Yeah.
So you have to just be yourself. And that's what people want. They want to feel trusted. They want to trust you. They want to connect with you. They want to say, will this person do the best thing for me and give me the best deal? That's the key point of it. The purpose is, this particular product or service that I am actually doing, is this of value to you? Is this what you want? And you will only understand that by having a conversation. So you forget about all these other things that you have to go in and you have to do this, 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 and this. And this is what confuses an awful lot of people. They go in with these misperceptions that you have to follow these steps and you have to keep closing the person. And these are all techniques that have been used for years. But do you know what? I press a button of points, not because it's too noisy. And all I do is just say, hello, how are you?
Yeah.
This is who I am. This is what I do. What is it that you may need? And through those conversations, I might not only just find out that they need this, that they may have 10 other things that they need too, and I become a connector. So that's the way that I tend to look at selling. And that's the way that I sort of like diffuse all these misconceptions and perceived ideas. And in particular, anybody setting up a business by themselves, if they don't have any sales, they don't have any business.
Yeah.
Bottom line. And they freak out to high heaven. They think, oh, I need a salesperson to come in and do this side for me. Well, if you've created a product or a service and you've built that, you've done it with two things in mind: a passion of what it is that you're very good at. And if you can't relate that to whoever you're speaking to, well, then what's the point?
Yeah.
So that's where some small business owners think, oh, I'm a terrible salesperson, I'm not good at sales. And they say, well, how do you know you're not? You haven't had your conversation.
Yeah.
So this is some of the misconceptions that I help, especially small business owners with, and in particular, and it's about your value. You have the right to take up that space. It's about your value. You know, this is also another thing too, where a lot of women don't want to ask for money. They spend all this time, they do all this great presentation, and then they walk away and leave the money sitting on the table because they're afraid to ask for it. You know?
Yeah, that's very true.
And I'm at this a lifetime. I'm at it over 35 years. Believe me, I didn't get every sale I went for. I learned the hard knocks. I learned this, that, the other. But I've perfected. I've learned things over the years, and they work very well for me. And I've seen them work extremely well for other people that I've taught and shown them. So really everything about what I do is on my business at the minute, I'm packaging up everything that I've walked, that I've talked, it's a lived experience.
Yeah.
So I'm actually passing on and sharing my knowledge for those who choose to have the sales training.
Most times than not, that is much more valuable, because you can read books, you can take these courses and all, but when you speak with someone who has 35 years experience, like, she knows a thing or two about what she's doing. So it's pretty much like mentoring, like it is so powerful.
Yeah.
And as you said before, like, you might not know that you're good at it because most of us might be afraid to even try. So when you start getting that confidence to try, you can then perfection that as you have.
Of course, like, I mean, you know, when I started my selling career, which was actually in London, one of the best places to start it, when I think of, well, I was selling a product and a service that you couldn't physically see, that had a bad reputation. There was a lot of negatives around it. And at the same time, I was able to pull it through, and I was able to do it, you know. But there were so many times I was so afraid, I was petrified to talk to people that I perceived that were higher up the pecking order than me, that I had no right to sit in front of them. So I had to do a lot of work on my own self-development at that stage. And that's what I would highly recommend. And it's something that I teach also in my workshops. Everything I do is blended with self-development.
That's really good.
And I think as you go on in life, we've all been victims of conditioning and different things. But self-development, you're always learning. And every stage of your journey, every chapter of life, you're always learning. And the one thing you can be sure of is change.
Absolutely.
It always will be change.
100%. If I reinterpret what you said, people buy from authenticity.
Yes.
So I love that, because part of what we shy from is to be ourselves. We think that we need to be a copy of the influencers, or that we have to behave in certain ways. So the fact that you are saying, okay, stop, be yourself, learn yourself by, grow these skills and to get to know yourself. And it makes me wonder, why do you think there's so many people that are afraid to sell? That they're just put off by having to sell.
I think a lot of people wear masks, and that's the thing. And it's a form of protection.
Yeah.
And you have to stand up and be you. People can see when you're not. Your energy, what you push out there, I think this thing about influencers, I've come from an age where that word would never have been used. My process, and I'm from old school, in order to sell, you had to believe in yourself. That's the first thing. Believe in the product or service that you're selling, and believe in the company or whoever it is you're representing. If those three things were not aligned, you would have quite a difficult journey. And believing in yourself is one of the most difficult things, because you have to work at where your environment is, what your situation, your peers, etc. So you have to be your own best friend to believe in yourself, believe in your capabilities, and you also have to look at your value system. And it's about aligning yourself with people in your life who are going to enhance what it is that you do, but it's your own value. If you don't believe in yourself, how do you expect
others to believe in you?
To believe in you? And that's maybe easier said than done. It's a lifetime of work for some people. Sales nowadays is based very much on relationship selling.
Yeah.
We don't want a one bam thank you ma'am. That's it. You go in, and there are some products you can actually sell online that suit that type of selling, which is e-commerce, where something's 10 or 15 quid. You don't need a salesperson to tell you about the product, the service. But when you're talking about taking your company, which is something that you have passionately devoted yourself to, what you're passionately about, something that you're really good about, that you add value, that you can give value.
Yeah.
And then you have to bring all those threads together, and that's what you're selling. But the first thing you sell is people buy from people. Okay. It's you.
Yeah.
So what's your relationship with you? And I often ask people, would you buy from you today? And some people stop and think, well, I might or I might not, So you have to move that dial. Of, would I buy from myself today? If I was that person, would I buy from me today? And again, you can't be 110% energy every day, but you just be your authentic self. That's where you are. And you build relationships. And that's what it is. It's about building that relationship. And all you're doing through that conversation is you've got a purpose. And the purpose is to say what it is you do. Can I be of service to this person? Can I be of help to that person? That is selling. And that's what I call selling with a conversation.
That is so interesting, because you would think it's so obvious now that you say it.
Well, it's simple as takes the sting out of the tail. Because you see, a lot of small businesses, and not small businesses, medium-sized businesses and people, it's fear.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. They're afraid. And when you break down the fear, it's the false evidence appearing real.
Oh,
That's all it is.
Yeah.
It's false evidence. Where did all this come from? Who said it was to be like this?
That's
So
true.
you've believed something, but you didn't unravel that belief. You didn't look at it and think, is that what I believe now? Did I believe that 10 years ago? So this false evidence is appearing real in my life, and it's stopping me from go forward.
Yeah.
So I have this fear around selling. And when people say, I've got this fear, what are you doing? You're reinforcing it.
Absolutely. You keep talking yourself into
Yeah.
it. Yeah, because once you tackle that confidence, there's no space for the fear. There's no space.
No.
As I said, it sounds so obvious and natural and evident, but unless someone explains that to you in a way that you just did, I would have had like this idea of like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to do it.
And we complicate ourselves. That's what we do. We set up these situations that, oh my God, what have I done? And you start this mantra, and you've got this program that's going in there to subconscious mind, and it flags up the minute you start this, and it goes like the monkey mind. It jumps all over the place,
And then you cannot, it seems that you cannot stop seeing that evidence that that's going to fail, because you have been kind of programming yourself that's going to happen.
Yeah, it's like, we all all understand, or most of us understand computers, some of us don't. But if you unplug, just unplug that connection for a day and see how it goes.
That's it. And that just gives you a very clear example of what could you be doing, what could you be achieving if you stop yourself from saying, I can't.
Yes. Well,
I love it.
I think that word can't is, and that's very important in this day and age where we're at now, is the vocabulary you use, the words you choose to use.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you've got choice.
And that to me as a mom is very clear, because when I was kind of learning to be a mom at the very early stages, I was reading a lot about parenting. And to me, that was as life-changing as doing another university degree.
Yeah.
And I remember one of the things that I read, it was like, well, learn to talk to your children. And to me, as a reflection after, is like, well, if I am able to speak kindly to my children and my mom and my friends, why am I not able to speak to myself kindly and, empowering and positive? Like,
Because you beat yourself up. That's a pattern.
and it's so annoying, because everybody around is like, oh, I believe in you, and you're like just like lashing yourself, and it doesn't serve you. And I'm sure that most of us, we have done that one time or two.
Yeah, it's because we're conditioned. Were you ever taught to love yourself?
I agree, and that is so important.
Times in that way, that was sounded as egotistic, and there's all these different connotations around that sort of narrative. And it's, when you think of it, it's not selfish. It's not this, if you don't do that, who's going to be there?
Yeah, exactly.
That's the whole key thing. And it's understanding as you journey through life that situations, people, places, all these different things will come into your life. They're part of your chapters, their journey, your learning as you evolve and grow. And when you get information like that in a positive way, it's like a new muscle.
Yeah, you have to strain it.
You have to start to work with it. So it's about recognizing those things. But at the end of the day, it's how do you want to be treated? Treated with kindness, respect, and value.
Yeah.
And that's the level that I work with everybody that I meet in sales, whether they buy from me, whether they don't buy from me, whether they buy from me maybe 6 months down the line. Everybody is treated the way I choose to be treated. And that's a reflection of what I give out.
And that's a good signature of personality. And I think people, they might not remember what they were told, but they always remember how they were treated.
They'll always remember how you made them feel. I have people that I've sold to maybe 27 years ago will still remember me.
Yeah.
And will still remember and ask me for advice.
And that is so impactful.
It is impactful because it is a level of conversations and relationships that I built. And I didn't know I was doing the thing in the right way. I was just being me. Before, I was really scared. I wasn't. I thought, oh my God, you have to be this and you have to be this and blah, blah, blah. And I was reading all these sales training books and I was running to all these things. And yes, they all helped to a certain degree. But they didn't teach me to be in front of somebody, looking them in the eye, try to take, could have been in those stages, maybe 15, 20 grand off them on the particular product and service I was selling that time. But if I weren't good at it, I wouldn't have got it.
Yeah.
That's it, you know. And I have been in situations where I've had to take way more money than that and do business deals and got them maybe way beyond other people. And on one particular case, now a particular customer, I got them to go 90,000 over the budget to get a particular thing that I suggested that would be the best thing for them.
Yes, because you have built that rapport and they knew that they were just trust, that they were not going to be, you know, so that's why they were able to hand over money, because they have this trust and belief that you're a person with values and with morals, and you are selling something you believe, as you said
You're
before.
walking your talk. And the bottom line is that they have to trust you. I wouldn't hand over money if I don't trust somebody.
Of course, yeah.
I won't buy things if I don't trust or believe in it, or I don't feel the comfort of how that person is either building a relationship with me. And that is something that I value more so than anything, as I say. And it's a core part of everything I do in my sales team, is all about relationships.
And that is so powerful, because I think, I don't know, I was having a conversation last week about how I believe that relationships are kind of disappearing. Most people are now choosing to talk to AI, for example, instead of talking to a friend or talking to other people, you know. And that's so interesting, because that happens with people at work. They might just plug their headphones on. It's not as common anymore to find people just chatting.
Yeah, I think what's happened, we're all evolving and growing, and we're going through a particular phase where there's a generation, maybe 30 plus or maybe a slightly under that, knows nothing but computers, technology. And technology has its place, I'll agree with that. But there are certain aspects of technology will never replace empathy.
Yeah.
It will never replace the
Even the warmth.
Yeah, it won't. So there are aspects, as I say, technology has a place, but it can't replace those sort of things, as I say. And I think also too, maybe there's been a very big emphasis on all this technology in business at the minute, and AI is all over the place, and people believe it's going to run the earth and there'll be nothing for certain jobs. We're in a different time in life. We are in a very different time. At every stage in life of history, everybody had embraced a change.
Absolutely. And I think technology has helped and it has served humanity for decades and centuries. And now it's time for us to kind of join and understand, but obviously with knowledge, not just accept what it is. But something that really, really I'm very passionate about is how you're helping women to find their confidence, their visibility, and making women into business. Because as I was saying in a previous conversation, at a certain time of my life, I discovered that I didn't have as many mentors anymore as when I was 20, let's say. So the fact that you are helping people, especially women, to find themselves and find and network with other women, I think that's very valuable. And I think that for many people, it's just about the product and the service. But there's some people like you that believe, okay, it's not just about I'm going to teach you how to sell, but I'm going to teach you a bunch of other skills that will help you grow, and at the same time become the pattern that you will pass on, and you can help others with the same care that I did. And I really like that, because to me it sounds like there's a lot of passion for service, for helping.
Yes, and that's exactly where I come from. I come from how can I be of service? And I do a very good course on, actually delivered it a few weeks ago, the imposter syndrome. And it's something that a lot of women suffer from. Their men suffer from it too, but they don't actually talk about that. But in a very interesting twist, I had a workshop that I was delivering, And blow me if 3 men didn't turn up to it. And it was called imposter syndrome. And I very much applaud those guys for coming, because it wasn't easy for them to set up into a room full of women to learn the imposter syndrome course. So we all suffer at different stages in our life. And actually, there's business people who have been in business for a long, long time that will suffer from imposter syndrome back and forth. It can creep up on you at any time. I myself have suffered from many cases as well. So it's all the circle of the imposter syndrome. There is sort of like a mechanism. I think it hits people at certain times. I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
That's a common denominator that just didn't happen overnight. That's been there for years. It is something that happens to people not feeling good enough, and different variations of comparing. In fact, actually, that's something that women do a lot of, comparing themselves to other people.
Yeah.
Forget about comparing. It's not for everybody. You don't have to compare, oh, this person's higher up the ladder than I am, and this, that, the other. And again, when you look at that, that nearly takes you back into a schoolyard in a lot of ways. And that's part of life, but you recognize these things differently. And it's going back about believing in yourself, putting the investment into you as the person. All those sort of things, those behaviors, just catch that thought, well, that's not what I believe now. I'm not comparing myself anymore to that person that I think's got a better business than me, or blah, 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 blah. That's only a pattern of rubbish that you're bringing into your space.
Yeah.
So I'm good enough. I know who I am. And that's the key. Know who you are. I know what my value is. I know what my strengths are. I know my weaknesses are. I know how I can improve that. I know what I choose to have. That's the whole line. And all along that comes with maturity, experiences, and that's a journey.
Absolutely. And I think it's identifying when is a skill gap. Okay, I don't know the same as that person did, or just because they have this amount of experience, or because they have this degree, or because whatever it is, then you know, okay, I'm not in the same position. However, it doesn't mean that I cannot get there. Just identify that gap. Then you can identify when it's a gap in confidence, when you feel, okay, that person is very confident, or might not, or you might even not compare with others. You just know that within yourself, at that particular time, you're not feeling as confident anymore, or as you would have been another time. But then you identify the gap. And sometimes I think it's a permission gap. Sometimes we struggle to give ourselves permission to. Sometimes I feel that we fear more the success more than the failure. Sometimes it's that fear of, what if it works? I don't know. So sometimes we rather say, no, well, I think it's not going to happen, because we are not ready to embrace, what if it actually happens? What if I actually get the deal? What if I actually get what I want to be, or what I want to do?
That's an interesting thing, because when I go back into my selling career, and I ended up becoming directors of 2 different companies. And I remember the first time that I got the directorship of the first company, and I thought when I got there, as if I'd climbed this mountain and I'd got this, and I'd got all the trimmings that goes with that sort of thing. And I thought, is this it? It was like the biggest disappointment.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, all these things that I built up in my mind, I built the title.
Yeah.
That's what I built. I built the title and my perception of what it was to look like. And it certainly wasn't nothing like it at all.
Yeah.
Yes, you got the wages, and you got the money and everything that were a part of it, but it didn't fulfill me.
Yeah.
When I think of it, I went on and had another directorship, and then I went out and built my own business.
Which I think is very brave. And I'm so glad that you bring that up, because when you think about the experience, like we met several years ago in Mid-Ulster, and then our lives moved from different areas. So you, at that time, you moved to Australia, and I was just like, oh, I would love to go to Australia. And it was so interesting. And I moved to Antrim, and things were maybe not at the same time, but then I knew you came back, and then I kind of admire that power and that strength to say, I'm going to start again. I'm going to start from scratch in a different way, because obviously you are from here, you have connections, you have people, but at the same time, it's pretty much like a start over.
I wouldn't say it as that, but what actually happened and how I got to Australia, just to wind back, I got married.
Oh,
That's what took me to Australia. And I got married at 56 years of age. I had been selling since I'd been 22. And I had a huge selling career in London, sold in America, back in Dublin, Northern Ireland, had my own business. And just out of the blue, an ex-boyfriend appeared at my doorstep who lived overseas in Australia in 2014, just before my father was about to die. And I also had looked after both my parents as well, and was a full-time carer as well as running a business. But I had help with that as well. So that changed my whole life, and I landed out in Australia, in the most gorgeous part of Australia, in the tropics, and to start a new life. And I knew nobody but my husband. And I couldn't get a job, bizarrely, because everything said I was overqualified. And I thought, what? I have never in my entire life not worked. So I did the Aussie thing where I travelled around Australia, did all the capital cities for the first 6 or 7 months, and I did take a break. And then thought, I'm going to be living here. I've got to work. I've got to do something, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, I did everything, and I mean, I got out into every group I could possibly get into and went meeting people on all roads and directions. And I did voluntary work. I fed the homeless. I did all these different things. Something totally different, completely different. And then I saw a niche, and this is something that I'm very good at doing. I see niches very clearly. I don't know what it is, but I join dots, but I see niches very clearly. And I saw a niche in the market in this area where there was quite a lot of hospitality. Nobody was doing food waste, and there was nobody doing anything about it, basically. I was shocked, and I thought, oh my God, I've got tons of experience in food waste, selling food waste equipment. So I decided, how would I go about setting this up? I have no business contacts. I know nobody here, but I've just met a few people through a woman in business, Chamber of Commerce, the usual sort of things, but I really have no business contacts whatsoever. I don't know the lay of the land. However, I decided to ring some of the manufacturers that I'd worked with in Italy and also in Sweden. And I asked, where in Australia do you sell your products? Blah, blah, blah. They told me. So then I said, okay, I'm not even legal in the country as such. I haven't got my residency yet. I'm on a subclass visa. I'm allowed to work, but I can't really own a company at all yet. And I thought, but I see where I could sell some of this equipment. So I rang their cohorts down in Sydney. Oh, we don't deal with up there, blah, blah, blah. So I said, okay. I did this deal on the phone to one particular guy. I never met him, and I still haven't met him, actually. And this just gives you an idea. And I said, if I were able to sell this piece of equipment up there, which I know all ins and outs about it anyway, you know, would you put it through your company? And I'll give you a percentage out of it, and you give me a percentage. So it goes through your company, and you get the sale, so to speak, but it's my sale. So he agreed to that. Within 6 weeks, I had set up my own business, and I had sold £70,000 worth of a piece of machinery to Cairns International Airport, and I knew nobody in the airport as such, and they bought what I came up with. And directly after that, I sold the machinery into prisons in that area. So here I was having nobody, and I was able to start that, and I was able to pull that. Then I saw the niche in the market for compostable packaging, which again, they were still working with polystyrene, believe it or not. And I got Vegware, which was another particular thing, and did the exact same system with him, the guy down in Sydney that had the agency for the whole of Australia. And I started selling that to loads of places, and that brought me into thing. Then COVID happened and everything closed down, but I still sold the packaging. And in the middle of it all, I had spoken to Queensland government, a bit like Invest and I, that were looking for mentors. And this is way before COVID. And I had put my name down, had never really heard anything. And just about 2 weeks after COVID lockdown happened, they contacted me So I ended up mentoring and coaching all the food businesses, as well as supplying my compostable packaging. Then I got into doing quite a lot on the food waste. And again, it was a bit of a slower process because they had not seen this sort of thing up there before. And I had been invited on TV shows, and I was on the radio and loads of things in Cairns. So now, even at this minute in time, I still have a consultancy business open there, and I'm the most well-known person for food waste in Cairns.
Which is amazing.
And that was on a short space of time, you know. So I came back home, and the reason everything came back home, my mother died during COVID, so I didn't get home for her funeral, which was a huge, huge thing for me. And I couldn't go through the grieving process until I came home, so to speak.
Yeah.
And just before that, and just on the heels of that, my sister took cancer, and she unfortunately passed away. And that all happened within the space of about 14, 15 months, you know, and it was just horrendous. So I decided I need to be at home to process all these things in both of us. So myself and my husband, we were in a very good position, and I have property here as well. So we were able to come home, and I said, I just need to be at home for a while and things. And at the same time, with this everything happening in Australia, I coordinated with a couple of other people who wanted to be involved in what I was doing. So they do a bit of work with me in Australia, and I still mentor for the Queensland government online at night time, maybe twice a month.
That's
so I
really
sit up
good.
to 1 o'clock in the morning mentoring people.
What's
And that happens. So then when I came back, and I thought, well, so we needed to be here, and I said, okay. I've always done the sales training as well. I've been doing this in Australia as well. And I decided to, start this here again. And I've been going now home about just nearly 2 years now, actually. And we were trying to have a lifestyle of work so many months in Australia and so many months here. At the minute, that's proven a wee bit difficult. And when I started doing a lot of my things here, I started getting invited to quite a lot of things. And so I just went out and I did a woman in business one, and they asked me would I come and do a workshop, and it went very well. And I ended up becoming a mentor for Women in Business Northern Ireland. I mentor some people on the Grow It program, and then I also mentor for Invest in I, and I'm down as a mentor for them. And then I went to a lot of enterprises and things, and I said, look, I have a lot of courses I've written them myself. It's all about my lived experience. Would you be interested? So that just started. I just went and knocked doors, and now that's all started to spiral. It's been very good. And now it's spiraled into the south, so I do a lot in the south as well.
That's so inspiring because, as you said, sometimes it seems for some people it will be like quite narrow-minded to say, oh, well, I'm in a different country, I don't know anybody. And you could close yourself into that situation.
Well, I had choice. I could have retired. And I suppose that was a semi-retiring for about 7 or 8 months, but I get bored. And you got to get out and meet people.
Yeah.
I've got a skill set that I know is very good, and it is unique, and there's not very many have that can go out. And it's the same pattern, actually, because every sales job I've went into, I was never handed a database. I literally had to go out and find the business. So it's something that I am very good at doing, and I like doing it, and I'll get in where a draft wouldn't. And I love the whole, I would say, the hunt on that. And that's the type of salesperson. I'm a hunter. That is, as I always say, there's two types of salespeople, the hunters or the order takers, and I'm definitely a hunter.
Oh, I love that. Was so powerful. I think we need that.
I'm definitely a hunter.
That clarity is so spot on. I love that. And I wanted to ask you a slightly bit different because there is a strong value thread in your work. So I can see empathy, I can see integrity, I can see authenticity, I can see customer centricity and long relationships, which I love. That feels very aligned to agents of change.
Yes.
So, and because change isn't just about disruption, it is more about the restoring the humanity to systems that have become transactional. So how do you define selling with integrity?
I think, as I said, you've got to be honest with yourself. Integrity is all about honesty.
Yeah.
It's all about honesty, trust, being human, being vulnerable, being real. And if you're going to build a better future, there's 3 things you need. You need courage, you need connection, and you also need contribution. And the first thing you have to be courage, and it goes back to being your authentic self.
Yeah.
If you're trying to change a society, you need everybody on board, but you need to connect with them in some way that they can be on board. And that takes a lot of courage to go into, whether it's communities or mindsets that people, but people have to embrace change in a courageous way.
How do you keep connected when the person you're dealing with is getting skeptical of what you're trying to sell?
There'll always be skepticism. There'll always be naysayers. There are always that. But what is it that you're trying to convince them of? What is it that you're trying to, for example, when I was doing the food waste in Australia, the first block I was hit with, well, sure, there's loads of land in Australia, it's not been used, you can fire the food waste in there. So what? What do you really want to do about it? And I said, well, we talk about being responsible. Responsible, sure, it's not ours. Yes, it is yours because you created it. You created this food to sell in your hotel that you made money out of. And then when the food didn't sell, you threw it out through the door. So you theoretically threw a piece of your profit out through the door. But you have to be responsible. And it's everything like that is always connected with behavior change, people's behavior.
And I was going to touch about that just when you bring that up about sustainability. What do you think businesses often misunderstand about sustainability? You have pointed out like it's not my responsibility. It's not my job to sort that out. There's this huge lack of responsibility and being accountability of this is mine or what are we doing.
I think it's like when you look at the collective, the word sustainability has been posed around a lot of things, and there's companies that are doing good things, really good things, and there are others that are just using it as a bit of a tag on to sell things. And let's be honest, that occurs. If you're being really sustainability as a culture of awareness, as a culture of change behaviors, it's a culture of, if you take the word responsibility, the ability to respond.
Okay.
That's the difference. And so there are various companies that are doing lots of good things, but it's about people being educated in what's cause and effect. If we keep running ragged with all the things that's happening in the earth, then there'll be no earth to leave to the next generation, right? So it's about your behavior has an impact on somebody or something. Well, maybe today, not today, but maybe tomorrow. So it's when you get a collective of people and they try to do the right thing of being sustainability, it has to become the ripple effect.
Yeah.
And that means that governments, businesses, everybody has to be involved in it. It is not something that is solved by one person, one company, one organization. It's a collective. And when you have those collectives working together, from the same hymn sheet, so to speak, there'll always be differences. There'll always be people having difference of opinion on ways to go, but it's how you contribute, how all those organizations recognize that you're all there to be part of the sustainable problem because you all caused it indirectly. And you have to be, as I go back to that word responsibility, the ability to respond. So it's about choice. You can choose to respond in a very positive way or a very negative way. And it's those sort of conversations need to be held a wee bit more often with lots of people. And like food waste is only one aspect of it. There are many, many, many other things that are going on at the moment and that are affecting other parts of the world. And we tend to find that if it's not happening in our own backyard, people are not really worried about it. But I think most people have to create communities and workplaces where people feel more valued, connected, healthy and included. And we look at the planet, we look at prosperity, we look at purpose, we look at partnerships. All those things are part and parcel of the way forward in sustainability. Each has a role to play in it. And each of us have a role to play in it. And it's when those conversations aired a wee bit more.
Yeah, absolutely.
There are changes, and change will always happen, as we said before at the beginning. And it's something that you have to make sure whatever it is, your actions, your behavior, it has an impact, and it has an impact on a positive way or a negative way. And that's a very sobering thought to think about when you do something that's in a positive way, like in the work that I like to do in my legacy. I would have liked, God forbid, if I'm not here tomorrow, the next day, that's something that I've done has left an impact.
That is so impactful because you actually answered without knowing a question that I had planned for you. And it was like, what was that role of the conversation? And you said that is fundamental, this conversation and the relationships and the education, all that is playing a changing and a very impactful situation or an impactful event to change the behavior around waste and sustainability, not just food waste, as you said, but all of it.
Yeah.
And that conversation and that relationship and that education, they are like the fundamental pieces to get some change. It's not necessarily an overnight change, but it's getting to the right direction. And I think that is very relevant.
And the thing in it overall is you never give it up.
That's it. You just keep going.
Never give up. Like that's a key thing. And it's the slow plodding ones that win the race. And that's okay to be the slow plodding one. You don't have to be the fast go-getter.
Absolutely. And sometimes you get further by being consistent and then being fast.
Yeah, and it's also too is that life is all about a journey. It's about all the people, the places, the things. It's all about, as I said at the very beginning, it's an adventure.
Absolutely. Great summary to that.
And I hope to have more adventures. And in the process, enjoy the journey. Because the goal is of no use whatsoever if you don't enjoy the journey.
Absolutely. I think that's very, very fundamental. And on this podcast, we explored what it means to be an agent of change, not just as a title, but as a way of being. And for me, your work about changing the conversation about sales from pressure to purpose, that's very important to me, but also from fear to confidence, from transaction to relationship. That's really what triggered in me the idea of Tina is an agent of change, because yes, you would superficially say, oh, well, she's only quote unquote sales training. But when you dive into what you're actually explaining and sharing, to me it's very clear that it's way beyond that. There's a lot of content to it and a lot of values and integrity and all that is so relevant for us. So when you hear the phrase agents of change, what does it mean to you?
I think it's agents of change to me is maybe about 5 strings. It's those who choose to look at life in a slightly different way, that have maybe a vision that they can do better by helping people create better communities, better workplaces where people are more valued, more connected, more healthy, more integrated, included, working on the planet, using more resources responsibly, reducing waste, protecting biodiversity, making choices, allowing the environment that we actually live in to regenerate itself, not to be sort of like dug up by others. And prosperity, building businesses that are profitable but that have longevity, that have value for societies, employees, customers in the community. And the purpose is aligning all this innovation, all this technology. As I've said before, technology is good if it's handled the correct way.
Yeah.
And whether it's economic growth, whether it's what we're doing, is it has to improve the lives of others. It has to improve lives in general, rather than being like a big Hoover increasing consumption.
Absolutely.
And partnerships.
Absolutely.
That's a key point. Partnerships, collaboration, those sort of things, recognizing that the governments, business, communities, they all have a part to play. And no man is an island. Like everybody has to work together. And no one organization, as I said before, can really solve all the world's problems.
No.
So in relation to the impacts of change, you are a piece of the cog in the wheel. And what you can contribute to that has those 4 or 5 threads in it. And each day, if you're able to impact in each of those between people, place, or planet, profitability and purpose and partnerships, if there's something that you can actually key in every day, you're being impactful.
Yeah,
you're being an agent of change.
And I think that is precisely the core of what this podcast is. It's about finding a space to have these conversations, to talk about these, to connect with each other and put people in a position in which they are known and connected by others with their skills. And speaking of that, when you think about someone who's listening to the podcast and they have an idea, a service or a business or a message that they believe in, but they are scared to put themselves out there. So maybe they're afraid of being judged. Maybe they don't know how to sell, or maybe they just feel that they are not ready. What would you say to them?
Just do it.
Just do it.
Do the same as Nike, just do it.
Yeah.
And one thing, and this is all go back to technology, that technology will not give you instinct.
Mm-hmm.
It's your instinct you have to listen to, your gut feeling you have to listen to. And if that instinct is telling you to go forward, if that instinct is telling you, I need more help, I need specialist help, or I need somebody just to coach me for a couple of hours, whatever, my door is opened as well. But just listen to your gut. And sometimes you sit on the fence too long and somebody else comes along and takes away, does the exact same thing and makes something. So I think what is it's get up and just do it. What's the worst thing that can happen?
Absolutely. It makes so much sense.
And if anybody has an idea, and if that idea or that feeling is 80%, I can do this, I can get up, well, just do it. Just go ahead with it and forget about judgment. There'll always be people there to judge you, good and bad. Forget about them. Just do, but know it in yourself. Come from a place of realness, of authenticity, of integrity, and know that whatever it is you're doing or whatever you choose to do, that you're doing it with the correct mindset and the correct purpose, and that will be of value to others and service to others.
I think it's so powerful because sometimes we just need someone to push us a bit and say, come on, just do it. Yeah, I love it. So just before we finish, I want to ask you one more question.
Okay.
And that is, what gives you hope?
What gives me hope? That's a big loaded question. I think you always have to have hope. What gives you hope is that this too will pass. That's a great thing. My mother always said that, and was something that was just a statement of, just if things weren't going right with your work or something like that, this too will pass. As I said, change is always occurring. But what gives you hope is that I think in general, I choose to, and that's the word, I choose to think that humanity is still good. There's goodness in everybody. There's goodness in people. And I choose to think that way.
Thank you so much for this conversation.
You're very welcome, and thank you.
What I'm bringing here today is just at its best. It's not about pressure, it's about purpose, it's about listening, it's about confidence, and it's about believing that what we have to offer has value.
Yeah.
You remind us that business can be human, the growth can be values-led, and that sometimes the most powerful change begins with a conversation. To everyone listening, thank you for joining us for Conversations with Agents of Change. If this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who's building something, starting again, or learning to speak about their value with more confidence. I will leave some notes for Tina O'Higgins' website and her LinkedIn. Until next time, keep listening, keep learning, and keep becoming the change you want to see in the world. Thank you. This podcast is produced by the Change Impact Group.